everyone, welcome to the News Desk. I've been joined by Hall of Famer Mr. Frank Karsten and Simon Gertzen. In fact, it's doctor and doctor, really, so I'll have to be patient if you're both doctors. So welcome along. Frank, we're going to talk about the unified modern format. Let's start off with what is modern. Let's just put up on screen for you all the cards you can play with in modern. This is the modern format. There's 53 sets, right the way from 8th edition to Kaladesh. There are a few cards you can't play with. Let's take a look, because this is the banned list. There it is. No Eye of Ugin, no Summer Bloom, no Vault of Whispers, no Skull Camp. Yeah, so that only leaves us, I don't know, Frank, 8,000-10,000 different cards to choose from?
It's a huge format.
All right, so that's what's going on there. Now, this unified, we've talked about it a little bit already on the show, this idea that a particular card can only appear in one of the three decks. Mm-hmm. Why is that a big deal?
Well, what it means, for example, if I have a player in my A seed with, say, a banned Eldrazi deck, which relies on Temple Garden, then I cannot put another Abzan deck in the B seed that also plays Temple Garden. It's a bit of a departure from the rules that we had last year. There you could still play cards across multiple decks as long as they didn't add up to more than 4. Mm-hmm. Right now, it's once you have just one shock duel in one deck, you cannot put it into another deck. And many of the modern decks are built around these fetch lands and shock land mana bases.
Let's put the official rules up for you so you can all just clarify this at home. Again, everyone sits in A, B, or C, and the deck will be assigned there throughout the weekend. And then what Frank's talking about here with, if you like, the puzzle cards that need to find a home. Let's take a look at just a couple of examples of those. So you've already mentioned Temple Garden, Frank, and then Lightning Bolt, Inkmoth Nexus. Again, they're problem cards.
Yes, Lightning Bolt sees play in a bunch of decks ranging from Naya Burn to Junt. Inkmoth Nexus means that you cannot put a good Infect deck and a good Affinity deck next to each other. Now we might, it is possible to still play a deck with kind of a crippled mana base where you try to make it work, but from what I've seen so far, I've been scanning through the deck lists earlier today, I haven't seen any teams go that direction. All the decks you're going to see today, because Modern is such a vast format, there are literally hundreds of possible 3-deck configurations. Pretty much all the teams showed up with 3 deck lists that are all perfectly viable for playing in an individual Modern tournament as well.
Simon, at a typical Pro Tour, pros work out what the best decks are, and then often will make a metagame call to be the deck that beats the deck they think is going to be the most likely. Absolutely. You can't do that in Team, can you?
No, it's really, really complicated because you wouldn't have to look at individual decks, but possible 3-deck configurations. Frank actually did some work on that, and there is a huge number of possible options. It goes in the hundreds, and then still it's really difficult to metagame because even if you would know what most people would bring, there's still the problem that you don't know in which seed you're going to play against it.
All right, so Frank, we're just going to go through as many modern decks as we can before the players get themselves ready and shuffled for round 4, the first round of modern. So, in a shocking turn of events, boys and girls, Frank's decided to start with Affinity. Go on then, Frank, tell us about this.
Well, this is just an artifact aggro deck that aims to dump a bunch of artifacts on the battlefield early on and then exploit them with cards like Cranial Plating and Arcbound Ravager. When it comes to Team Unified Modern, this could be called the elephant in the room because Affinity has been a Tier 1 deck since the Modern format's inception, and it doesn't have a whole lot of overlap apart from, I guess, Inkmoth Nexus with Infect with other decks. So I did some analysis indeed where under a bunch of assumptions I found out that Affinity should be the most expected deck, except it's also a deck that is very easy to hate out, and if people know, everyone knows that it is a deck that many people expect, that doesn't have a lot of overlap, so everyone was gonna show up with Stony Silence, Ancient Grudge, Drokil's Recall in their sideboards, and as a result of that, partially, and also because it's not great against Infect, Affinity is actually not the most popular deck today.
All right, okay, so let's try Infect. let's see what we've got with that bit of poison counteraction.
Yep, so this was actually the most popular deck today, I can already say that. This is the deck that aims to win by giving the opponent 10 poison counters. There's a dizzying number of pump spells, including a new addition from Kaladesh in Blossoming Defense. Basically, with just a single creature like Listener Elf, you can easily deal 10 poison counters easily.
Okay, we'll stick with unfairness if we can. How about Bant Eldrazi?
Yep, so the dream of this deck is to go, well, turn 1, Noble Hierarch, turn 2, Eldrazi Temple Thought-Knot Seer, which is not bad, and then turn 3, Reality Smasher, and just get in there. Now, this deck has some relevant amounts of overlap. For instance, it shares Noble Hierarch and Breeding Pool with Infect, but also, say, Ancient Stirrings with other decks like Tron or Lantern Control. So, sometimes difficult to put together, but still a good deck.
Now, he said the T word there, Simon. He said Tron, so why don't we put Tron up on the screen for you? Simon, why don't you tell us what the Tron decks are trying to do?
Yes, Tron, Urza's Tower, Urza's Power Plant, Urza's Mine, together create 7 mana, and this deck has so many ways to find these non-basic lands that it can often cast Current Liberated or Eldrazi starting from turn 3.
So, Tron's an outstanding deck. Now, Frank, the next deck, we've sort of moved up our pick order, if you like, in the light of the data that you've had. What deck do you want to talk about next?
It's going to be Lantern Control. This was kind of a surprise for me to see it being so popular. I think it came in 6th in our list of decks, but yeah, it is there. So this is quite the deck, quite of a divisive deck on whether it is good or not to have in Modern, but personally I love having something completely different around. What this deck is trying to do is to basically lock out the opponent out of relevant draw steps by looking at their top card and then milling it away if it's a good one, playing Ensnaring Bridge to make sure that they can never attack. And the deck also got plenty of upgrades from Kaladesh. There's Blooming Marsh, Inventor's Fair, and Glintnest Crane, which help the deck's consistency. And also importantly, it doesn't share many cards with all of the other decks. Mox Opal with Affinity, some other minor cards, but basically if you want to play Inkmoth Nexus and Mox Opal, then you had to play Infect and Lantern Control.
Simon, would you play Lantern Control in a Modern format?
I thought about it. I've played it in individual Modern, and I didn't think it was good enough to bring to this tournament because ultimately I think there are just better options out there which are not as reliant on certain matchups going right or you just finding your pieces quickly enough.
Now those are just 6 of the top decks in Modern. Frank, roughly how many have we got in the field?
30, 40, something like that, yeah.
30 or 40. Well, we're going to see plenty of them.
How much time do we still have left?
No, that's it for now. But that's just your lightning fast guide to the Modern archetypes with Dr. Frank Karsten.